Greetings and welcome to another video from odooclass.com. In this video we're going to take a look at the warehouse management application that's available with Odoo, and we'll look at some of the basic setups and then explore some of the advanced features. We'll also kind of show what it does and does not include, because sometimes you can get warehouse management installed, with purchasing management, with manufacturing, with sales management. And so for this video we're going to look at just what would happen when we install our warehouse management application. So we're going to click here to install, and now in version 8 there's been some significant refinements to warehouse management. That part of this endeavor was taken on by Camp2Camp, a very reputable module developer and Odoo partner. And so you'll see that right here by default you see what is basically a dashboard of the default operations that are available to you in the warehouse module. We have our company receipts right here. Any kind of internal transfers that would move from one location to another. That could mean within the same warehouse, for example, moving from one it could be an internal transfer from one warehouse facility to another warehouse facility, and then, for example, a delivery order that would go out to your customers is typically how the delivery orders would work. Now, naturally, since we just installed this, everything is zeroed out. So we have no operations, there's no transactions in this at all. And so what we need to do is look at, well, what's available to you in the warehouse module. Now you'll notice that because this is just the warehouse module, you're really limited to the products tab here. So we're going to go ahead and create a product that we can sell in our warehouse, and we'll just call this widget 1 and hit save. Now something to notice, that you'll notice this is blank here until you hit save. That's just a little something to keep noticed. And typically if you're working with warehouse, we should talk a little bit about the difference between stockable, consumable, and service. And if I mouse over this, you'll notice it says consumable will not imply stock management for this product. Stockable will imply stock management. So we're gonna, since we're working with the warehouse module, naturally it's going to make sense to do this as a stockable product, because we're going to want to see these transactions in the warehouse and see how we can kind of use this module to give us an idea of our inventory. So I can hit a sale price here. Now if I go over to inventory, you'll notice here that it's got a quantity on hand, and then you have an incoming amount, which would show any delivery orders that are coming in, or I should say incoming shipment. Delivery orders, we need to reserve that vocabulary for when we're sending product out of the warehouse. And then naturally we've got any quantity available. So what's the difference between quantity on hand and quantity available? Well, what quantity on hand is going to then be affected by procurements, or by what is available because of picking, or orders are called out. So you might have a higher quantity on hand, for example, than what's available, because some of the quantity that's on hand has been allocated to other orders. So now let's go down here to status and see what we get by default down here. If I click on this, we see in development, normal, end of life cycle, and obsolete. And if I mouse over that, we'll see if they give us any help on that, and they're not. But essentially what you're going to be using this for is, this gives you a way to organize your products. And so maybe you're not ready yet to actually have this product in your pipeline. You don't want to offer it to your customers. You don't even want your salespeople to see it yet. You can put that in development. And so it gives you just a way to kind of categorize your products across a different matrix, so to speak. You'll also notice that we have an end of life cycle product, and meaning that this would be an example. You'd use this in a business process where you want to basically start phasing that product out, that it's at the end and it shouldn't be in its normal process. It perhaps your salespeople would recommend other products, and maybe it would even be kept on an alternative website, like an obsolete inventory would be down here, or stuff that's just maybe it's been replaced by another part. So down here, this gives you the option to have a rack and a row and a case. Now these are just text fields, so you can't really overthink this. This just is if you had a typical warehouse in which you would say a particular rack number. So you might say that this is in rack B of row 1, and that the case that it is inside of that rack might be case number 5. And so you can create a way to organize your storage locations. Again, I would just say that this is not going to be necessarily available throughout the whole system, for lack of a better word. That it's this is informative. You could print it on reports. You could put it on work orders. You could put it on pick tickets. So you might if you're going to use this data in your system, be prepared to adjust your reports and add this data to your necessary tickets, because by default it's probably not going to be showing up in a lot of the views in Odoo. But at least there's a place to hold it here. You can look it up here, and watching one of our other videos, one of our report videos, you could quickly see how to drop this on a report. Down here we have weights, volume, gross weights, and net weight. Now this is a little different than the storage locations in that the weights, depending upon how you integrate with external systems like shipping systems like FedEx and UPS, that these could be valuable for data that would basically automate your shipping calculations and so forth. So that's primarily where you would see these, is to it'll give you some kind of idea of what it's going to cost to ship a given quantity of that product. And I saved this kind of piece here a little bit, this counterpart locations and properties. And so I'm going to explain this counterpart locations and properties, because this is kind of the main focus of this video, is to really help you understand how the inventory is structured and how it works in Odoo. Odoo handles inventory much the same way that accounting handles accounting entries. So if you remember our other videos and have looked at like the accounting and finance videos, analytical accounting and so forth, and basic accounting in general, it's always a double entry. And with Odoo's stock moves and the way things move through Odoo, is you'll always have a corresponding entry, and so we're going to do a couple of transactions and it'll make more sense here. But these counterpart locations, I'm going to explain them a little bit, and then I'll give some examples so that it can be real clear. And so this procurement location, virtual procurements, this would be a counter to, as it says here, the stock location will be used instead of the default one as the source location for stock moves generated by procurements. And the production location, you'll notice that it says generated by manufacturing orders. And then down under here, we'll see stock moves generated when you do an inventory location. This is the one we'll focus on in this video, because we've only installed the warehouse module, really to force changes in the counterpart for production. You'd have to have the MRP module installed, and likewise for purchasing procurement, you'd have purchasing. But we're going to use an example here, and you'll notice that it says inventory loss is the counterpart location. And what this is basically going to do is say whenever you're doing a reconciliation and there's a different amount of product in inventory than what you have in your system, you physically go out and count your inventory and you find 50 widgets when you expect there to be 55, or there's 55 in the system. You need to account for that, and that's what this account, this counterpart account, is for, so that you can properly do a double entry, just like you would in an accounting system where your debits must equal your credits. You need to show that the reason there's 5 less in your inventory is because they went into this virtual location inventory loss account or move. So in Odoo, everything happens by moves to show you what your current balance is. So if I were going to say update the quantity on hand and do an update in here and click on this, and I'm going to just go and say what's our new quantity on hand, and we're going to say that we have 100 widgets and apply that. Now you'll notice that it just says right now quantity available 100, but behind the scenes more has happened than just what you see here. So I'm going to save this, and you'll notice that now we have 100 quantity on hand. And if I click over to moves here, or I could go to stop moves here since it's the first one, so I'll just go ahead and click stop moves so you can see what you get here. You'll notice that we have created this move in which we have a source location and a destination location. And you'll notice that our source location is actually our inventory loss account, because remember, adjustments made to inventory have to be reflected in 2 places. They can't just appear out of anywhere. So what happened is our stock went up to show our 100 that came in, but at the same time our source location, inventory loss location, 100 went away there. So we can look at this location, and by looking at the totals here, we can reconcile and determine, how, where did this come from? These 100 quantity didn't appear out of nowhere, and we know they didn't come from a supplier. We know they didn't, get manufactured. We know that they were part of this virtual location inventory loss, which if it says loss, well, we got 100 of them. Well, you got to think of loss as in if it's positive, if an inventory loss is positive, that means you've actually gained. So if it's negative, then as you have scrap or as you lose amounts, that would offset this account. So don't think of inventory loss as being that it always has to only have in it when you lose. It's a relative term. In other words, if you have a negative inventory in this account, which we'll see as we go on, as we can do a reconciliation or physical inventory count to make that change. But let's go ahead, and you'll see here that we've got this stock move that's that's now adjusted our quantity up to 100. So if we go to products, we see that we have 100 on hand, and our forecasted is 100 as well. Now let's go down to locations and see what we see there. Okay, now you'll notice when I click on locations, all we see is stock, the internal location. And now I can click on our stock warehouse, and inside it we get to see a little bit of information about it, that it's an internal location. I'm going to hit edit so we can see some of these options, and you'll notice that there's an owner here. So you can actually assign owners to accounts, or you could maybe say person responsible. You'll notice that it's included our company here, your company. This is just default. So if you have multiple companies, you can assign ownership as well to the company. You'll notice here that warehouses themselves have optional location details as well. And you'll notice that it even says in here that this is for information purposes only. So this would be something that internally in your own business processes for this particular location, this would be the corridor, shelves, and heights, and we'll get into that a little bit when we talk about nested hierarchical locations. And in reference to that right now, you'll notice that there's a parent location right here. And the parent location is showing that it's the full warehouse. Now I'm going to save this, and we're going to go back to the list view. And you'll notice that even though there's one location here, the reason we're only seeing one location is because of this filter up here. There's a filter that restricts by default the locations to only being internal. So if I uncheck this, you'll notice suddenly we see a whole ton more locations, and these basically are hiding, you know, some of the complexity from you, so that you don't have to look at it unless you really need to. But you'll notice that we have, you know, an inventory loss location, and so this is where that is actually defined, that when we brought our on-hand inventory in, we updated that inventory, that we can click on that, and we can actually click current stock, and you'll notice that when I click current stock, it came up empty. So that's you know, I had expected that would have been a little easier for us to see the virtual locations there, you know, the current stock. But it actually, if you think of it this way, it's really pulling it out of there. There is no current stock in there. So for a virtual location looking at current stock, you know, that's to be expected when you think it through a little bit. So, you know, clicking on current stock, there's nothing there. However, if I go back, you know, to this internal locations and click on current stock, we'll see our widget 1, and we'd see any other you know, products would all be listed here that are part of this warehouse. So let's go ahead and do one more so you can just see how that looks. I'm going to create a widget 2. And at that point, we're just going to jump over here to inventory real quick. And, you know, I could set the update here and do it the same way, but I want to show how we can get there another way. I'm going to hit save. And I had previously tried doing the request for procurement this way, but this is going to be complicated. You're better off having purchasing set up to do requests for procurement. So we'll do that as part of a purchasing video that will integrate with this warehouse concept, or this warehouse application, in a future video. So now I'm going to show you how we can take this widget 2, and all we did was really put it in. I don't think we set a price, did we? Let's give it, at least make it a $5 widget and save that. Okay, so now how could we show that we get you know, some of these into our warehouse without the same way? So now if you go up here under stop moves, we're going to do this kind of same operation the same way. So using this as an example, notice how we have virtual locations, inventory loss is our source, and the destination warehouse is our stock. We can do the same kind of thing here. Then we can go up here and we can say widget 2, and we want our source location, and you'll notice that it's given us the full list. We can do search more, and we're going to pick our inventory loss because that's where we're pulling it, where it's from. If we're just bringing them in, and like we had them in our garage and now we're bringing them into our company or something. And then for our destination location, we'll pick the warehouse stock location right here. And now there's a picking type, and this, you know, typically, you know, you would use receipts for you know, purchases that come in. So that would create a picking type that's basically saying waiting for this receipt. You can do an internal transfer, which would probably be an appropriate picking type here, because we're you know, basically bringing it in internally. You could pick that as the picking type, or a delivery order picking type, which would be naturally when you deliver products to a customer. So we can go ahead and do an internal transfer. I'm not sure that on the last one that it created into that. So now if there was a reference here, when it says reference, this reference could be like a purchase order, it could be a manufacturer order, and we'd see that. And if you were using purchasing, you can create procurement groups. Again, a little bit more advanced topic. It's a little bit outside of just warehousing, but we'll look at that. So I'm going to hit save, and you'll notice that we have basically a draft at this point. It's just new, and it's saying it's awaiting availability. So at this point, it's not even showing that it's waiting for it to come in. So I'm going to say process entirely, and you'll notice it jumped all the way till done. So it means we have brought the product into our warehouse. And if I click the list view here, we're going to notice similarities here. It did generate a reference number when it didn't before, and they naturally, it looks like, left the picking type blank. So they didn't use an internal picking type like I did. Instead, they just left it blank. But that's okay. It's not going to change the fact that the most important thing here is that our source location and our destination location quantities are updated. And if we go down to our warehouses here, we can click on our warehouse and see the short name for the warehouse. You can set an address for your warehouse. But more importantly, under locations, you'll now see under current stock each of our widgets. And then as you expand them out, that's where you can see the transactions that occurred right there. So now one of the questions I would ask right away when I saw that is like, where's our inventory value? Because I didn't see value in there. In fact, I saw the opposite. I think I saw that it was 0. So we have our quantities here, but our inventory values are 0. And these are the kind of things that this video is for, is because most likely you don't want 0 value in your inventory. So let's look at why that is. And it's really going to be really easy to tell. Is if we go to widget 1, we have a sale price, but under procurements we have no cost. If we're selling it for 5, maybe we're paying 3 for it. If we're doing good margins on that, let's try widget 2. We're selling for $5. So let's say maybe we're not doing quite as well on that. We pay 3. Okay, now you'll notice a few nice little things, or a little nice thing here is it shows us our quantity on hand here. There's 12 on hand. And likewise, if I go here, you see that we have 100 on hand. Let's see and go and check what that has done, if anything, to our location value. So I'm looking at our stock here, and I look at current stock, and you'll see that it's adjusted our inventory value. So cost is what you can take from that is adjusted in real time. It's looking at those stock moves, at what product moved from one to another, and if you adjust your cost on the products, it's going to then adjust the cost in your inventory valuation. So something to keep in mind. We can talk about more advanced features, first in, first out, last in, first out, these kind of things, that once a full system is put in place of posting this out so that your inventory value is not based upon what would be considered standard cost, is basically the inventory valuation you're seeing here. Standard cost meaning that your whatever your cost of your product is what's going to be reflected in your inventory valuations. So now let's think about just a little bit of a move here. I'm going to go back up to all the operations so you can see that we still have 0 here, because what this is doing is this is showing you operations that are awaiting to be happening. So in other words, if we do a picking type of where we have an incoming shipment that says as a result of purchase orders, then that's going to show up inside here in the receipts area. So let's go ahead and do another stop move, but I'm going to do one to pull some stock out. And so we're going to see how we can do these moves, and right now we're doing them manually. So most of the time you're not just going to have a warehouse module, usually you're going to tie it into purchasing to have, product coming in. It's also very likely that you might have it tied to like a sales order system or an invoicing system to generate orders to pull product out of inventory. If you're building stuff, then you're going to use an MRP application to do the middle work. But part of this video is to kind of get to so that you can see how it all works under the hood, so just how warehousing works, and then you'll get to see how you can automate a lot of these processes. Otherwise you really can do this by hand. There's nothing that says you couldn't really run a full inventory system this way. And so that's what I'm going to show you. Is if I wanted to show an inventory that this we've sold, say some of these widget ones, when you're using another system possibly that's doing the invoicing, but if this was just a pure warehouse management system, we're going to want to show that we've sold some of these and deduct it out of inventory. So how do we do that? We're going to pull 20 of these out of inventory. We say we got a request for 20 widgets. And so we would just come down here to our source location and say stock is our source location. And in our destination location, we got partner locations customers. So we just choose that. And the purple really helps us out, I think, in this kind of form, because you have quite a few required fields. We need to know the date that this happened. We need to know the destination location, and we need to know where it came from. Obviously, we need quantity. Let's do 25. And I'm gonna save this. And instead of saying process entirely, this time I'm going to say process later. And I'm going to put it there. And notice that it's changed this to waiting availability. It didn't just skip right to done. It set waitability. Now this could be actually really valuable, because if you think about it, you could have a warehouse situation where the orders come in from your order system, and now you don't want someone else seeing that there's 100 of them, when in fact you've just told somebody, hey, I'm going to send you 25 of these suckers. But at the same time, you've still got them sitting on your shelf. There's still 100 sitting on the shelf, but now you've allocated 25 of them. So in most operations, this isn't going to happen immediately. You're going to have a lag between the time someone says, hey, we need those 25, set them aside, basically, is what you're saying here. We're waiting for them to be picked. And why this is important is if I go here to products, you'll notice here that we have a forecast unit that I've actually, in this case, only had 12 units on hand. But if I click on this and I look at our inventory, that the quantity available is actually -13. Well, why is it -13? Well, because I've just requested 25 out of this. And so I've dipped into a -13. I don't have the availability in my inventory to make this transaction. So it's not showing that my quantity on hand is a -13 because I haven't pulled any off the shelf yet. Now let's go back and look at our stop moves. And you'll notice it's in red.